So Alero, we'll move on to the next segment.
Yes, I'm back in the studio now. We have two commissioners with us to look at developments in Edo State since we are in Benin. It's my pleasure to welcome the Commissioner for Culture and Tourism, Mrs. Elizabeth Anena. Good morning.
Good morning.
And the Commissioner for the Environment is also with us, Prince Clem Agba. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, if I may, I'd like to start with the Commissioner for Culture and Tourism, just leading off from talking about the artifacts, of course, before that gets cold in our minds. It seems that young people today don't understand the value of these things we just spoke about. Number one, do we still have artists of the category of those who did those works in Benin? And since the prince said that because we can now read and write, we don't actually preserve our history by things like that anymore.
In the days gone by, this kind of art, like bronze making in particular, was used to document maybe ceremonies or something that has just happened. And then, of course, we also had another dimension to it when the Portuguese came. Particularly when a sculptor came from Portugal, Giwa, and he taught the bronze casters new methods of bronze casting at that time. Yes. In fact, a crucifix was sent to the king of Portugal at that time, from Benin, in the exchange of gifts. That was the times then. These days we have a new generation of artists who are documenting in different ways. It doesn't mean that they are not documenting like it was done in the past. It's just that they have a different way of doing it through visual arts, paintings, through sculpting. And you have even women sculpting these days, even through demonstrative arts. Yeah, so there are different ways, like I said, that they're doing it now, but everything is still documentation. They even use the internet, the computer to paint, and they place their art on the internet. Some exhibit.
So let's just say it's now been modernized.
It's been modernized in another way.
So they've moved with the times.
Casting. The bronze casters are still there. The guild of bronze casters on Egun Street. Egun Street still exists. And they still do bronze casting like it was done in those days with the old methods, of using wax, and then melting the bronze.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, just before we move on, I know during conversation last night when we just arrived and we had a few minutes opportunity of seeing the governor, he was saying something along the issue, along the line of if you open up the state and there is good infrastructure, it becomes a lot easier and more accessible for people to come into the states to look at tourism as an option and to look at the arts and crafts and things that is done from many, many moons ago in the Benin Kingdom. What exactly are those key things that you will say your ministry has as agenda to reveal to the rest of the world that this is how much we have in terms of tourism opportunities?
Because Benin is such an interesting place. It's the land of art and culture, has great patrimony that everybody is interested in. The governor was right on point when he said that you needed to open up the place by making sure that the infrastructure was well grounded first. But luckily, in spite of the fact that he had a Herculean task, in bringing infrastructure to Benin, people still come, to see what we have. We still have visitors going to Egun Street, even going to the rural areas, in spite of our lack of infrastructure at that time. And now that infrastructure has greatly improved, we have been helping to organize and encourage festivals, all over the state, and also to organize cultural days in the local governments, which will culminate in the Edo Festival of Arts and Culture in December of this year, the 15th to the 23rd of December.
So if I were a white man, for instance, and I wanted to come to Nigeria,
Yes.
what would you convince me to come and see in Edo State?
So much to see. I would say start, of course, by seeking a handshake with the executive governor.
I may not get that chance because I'm just a tourist.
Then, of course, the palace, the ancient
So
palace.
Yes.
Yes, and Obakenza Cultural Center.
Okay.
It's I think, second only to the National Theatre in Lagos. Then, of course, Igun Street.
See the bronze carvers.
Yes, Ubine, where the soldiers were buried during the punitive expedition of 1897. There's Udo.
Also in Benin.
Also in Benin.
So
There's
everything
Udo,
is in
yes.
Benin.
No. There's Udo in Benin, which is a must-see, and Udo in Obiaja, which is another must-see.
Okay.
And of course, the Kukuruku Hills. So Sopomba, so much.
Okay. Now, let's swing to the environment. Sir, we know that one of the major challenges of Edo State has been the issue of erosion. May we start from there? Your work is cut out in that area, isn't it?
Yes, I am responsible for flood and erosion control in the state.
You caused it?
Yeah. And,
no, I was just kidding. I said you caused it, and you said
no,
yes. No. You didn't cause it, did you?
Of
No.
course not.
Okay.
Yeah. We have about 108 active gully erosion sites across the three senatorial districts of Edo State. Of course, the biggest one that we have is in Auchi, which has got about 8 fingers, and then followed closely by the Queen Eder Gully site in Benin City with about 2 fingers. So currently we're working with the World Bank through the Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project. Of course, this project was initially set aside for the southeastern states, and Mr. Governor had to approach the then Mr. President, our late President, and of course Edo State was added. Currently, we've completed designs for the 3 sites, Kenwa Gully Erosion Site, the Auchi Gully Erosion Site, and also the Queen Eder Gully Erosion Site. And only on Wednesday, June 18th, we advertised for Queen Eder. The Kenwa site has been awarded. And
what do you intend to do to them?
First, we are using what we call the grass approach, because if you want to do full reclamation, we require trillions of naira to deal with this. And that is why we say something that is clearly above the capacity of the state only to handle. So we're using the grass approach, which is both concrete and using of trees. The real thing we're trying to do is to make the gullies inactive. Okay. Once they are inactive, then the residents can stay around them. We'll do some form of reclamation, create some chute canals in them to allow for controlled flow of water to get to the actual sites where they should be. So when Mr. Governor was talking, he talked about the stormwater master plan that we put in place. And that's why early in 2009, we proactively did that, because we know that the side drains that you have in the streets do not necessarily defloor the city. What defloors the city is the primary drains. Yeah. And what has caused most of our erosion problems over time is the absence of primary drains and the communication between secondary drains and those few primary drains that we have. So you find that there's abrupt termination of drains in the past. So you end up pushing flood water from one end to another, thereby creating erosion. So we had to go through 12 months of study. And now we are working on the basis of science. We have data. We know where our flood waters end when it rains. In Benin, for instance, it ends up in two places, the Ogba River and the Ikoba River. We also know that 3/4 of those flood waters end up in Ogba River, and that just 1/4 of it goes to the Ikoba River. We also now know where to channel our major primary drains, because like we know, water would always find its level, and any attempt to make it flow upwards will cause a lot of